Ecological warfare is ancient. The scorched earth approach, also known as total war, involves the destruction of anything the enemy might use, especially food and water supplies. Yet it extends to industrial resources, landscapes, transportation systems, the economy, and people themselves. These anti-personnel and anti-environmental strategies can include the use of a munition to render an area off-limits. Tactics such as polluting water, air, and soil with natural, chemical, and biological munitions. Arson, slaughtering and poisoning livestock to spread starvation and disease, altering the landscape to impede travel and thwart agriculture, have been used for millennia. What follows are some historical examples. The Chinese contaminated the air of invading forces with arsenic smoke bombs as far back as 1000 BC. The Athenian military used hellebore plants to pollute the city of Kira's water supply in 590 BC. In 512 BC, the Scythians employed a scorched earth tactic against the Persian Achaemenid Empire during the European Scythian campaign. Before fleeing from their territory to avoid the Persian invaders, the Scythians obliterated their own food stocks and poisoned their wells. Many Persian soldiers died from starvation and thirst. During the Peloponnesian War between the Greeks and Spartans from 431 to 404 BC, while besieging the Greek city of Plataea, the Spartan army mixed wood pitch and sulfur to pollute the air with toxic fumes in an effort to subdue the Athenians. The Spartans also tainted wells in the Athens harbor. To quell an insurrection in the Roman province of Asia Minor in 129 BC, the Roman general Manius Aquilius poisoned the springs of rebel cities. In 80 BC, Roman general Quintus Sertorius polluted the air with gypsum powder as part of a strategy to suffocate Spanish insurgents. The Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa dumped human corpses into water wells during a campaign in Tortona, Italy, in 1155 AD. When the Mongolians invaded Mesopotamia from 1213 to 1224 AD, they slaughtered unattended livestock, destroyed crops, and further sabotaged agriculture by modifying the irrigation system of the Tigris River. To impede the French military, the Dutch opened embankments around Amsterdam to induce flooding during the Franco-Dutch War of 1672 to 1678. A scorched earth approach was used by the U.S. military during the American Indian Wars that included the wholesale destruction of crops, livestock, and food stores, with the intention of cutting off the Native American food supply. In the 1760s, British colonists gave Native Americans blankets infused with smallpox. During the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865, the Union adopted a scorched earth approach All resources used by the Confederates, including crops, barns, mills, homes, supplies, and livestock, were methodically ruined. Throwing animal carcasses into wells to contaminate drinking water was regular procedure. From November to December of 1864, during Sherman's March to the Sea, railroad transportation systems were destroyed, farms and factories were burned, livestock was slaughtered. Anti-forest rangers used roam plows and a defoliant called Agent Orange for the all-inclusive destruction of woodland and farmland during the Vietnam War. One highly effective ancient weapon of mass destruction that has been used frequently for millennia is fire. Fire has been used by militaries around the world since at least the 8th century BC. In ancient times, arson was the foundational warfare tactic because it was the easiest way to quickly ruin extensive territory and could be done by a small crew. Farmland, homes, buildings, and entire towns have been routinely set on fire. In addition to denying the enemy food and shelter, this actual scorched earth strategy has the benefit of inciting terror. The ecological methods and munitions used in the past to ruin the environment and sicken and kill people include natural, chemical, and biological weapons that pollute the air with toxic fumes, poisoning wells, reservoirs, and water pipes, dumping animal carcasses and dead human bodies into water reservoirs, contaminating the soil to prevent agriculture, burning vegetation, food crops, shelters, and food processing centers, altering landscapes, wrecking dams to cause flooding, sickening and slaughtering livestock. This has all been done before. Some of these methods are thousands of years old. At this time, I'd like to read a couple of quotes. The first is from a 2004 article in Naval College Review. The purposeful poisoning of food and water sources as a military tactic was once commonplace. Aeneas, the tactician, in 350 BC, wrote a siegecraft manual recommending that military commanders make water undrinkable by polluting rivers, lakes, springs, wells, and cisterns. The next quote is from an article entitled "The History of Poisoning the Well" that Smithsonian Magazine featured in February 2019. Since the dawn of conflict, armed groups have targeted water as both a tactic and potential weapon of war. In savaging rivers, wells, lakes, and more, attacking troops punish locals for their lack of support, or render the land useless if facing imminent defeat. So the idea that these early weapons of mass destruction were used out of desperation and for siegecraft ties in with the area denial strategy and biosphere destruction motives that we'll explore in chapters 9 and 18. I'll close this chapter with a quote from my August 2018 report. Such weapons and tactics are intended to inflict starvation, cause sickness and death, render the environment unsustainable, displace local populations, a form of land seizure, sever food and water supplies, and damage the economy of the target population.